somebody tell me just what is going on as it relates to the West Bridge? I listened to this statement this morning.
That includes ensuring that we construct that river wall between the two bridges and to mitigate against the prospects of having the river going across this Johnson Avenue and to Elliott Avenue and causing tremendous havoc to our people. And anybody who believes this work is not emergency work is not actually living in Dominica. I think that is something where we have to put politics aside and see certain things insofar as our development is concerned as a national project. And the river wall in Roseau and the West Bridge, the construction of a new bridge, that is of course part of the reconstruction effort post-Erica. And even looking at our rivers now, and that is one thing we have been trying to do. Of course, we now have Mr. Session on board as a consultant advising us, and some of the advice that we got from people with the expertise in the issue of hydrology, dealing with the whole issue as to how do we improve on the hydraulics of our rivers, more so in a major town like Roseau, and the issue of needing to map our rivers as is being done right now. We're going to require that kind of skill sets. And the construction of the West Bridge and the construction of the returning wall will require people with that kind of skill sets that speaks to, one, the issue of hydrology, the issue of structural engineering, and of course we may not have within our own local domain. So that's why it's so critical for us to put this thing first and foremost and remove the politics from it.
And before this, we heard Mr. Astafan.
You're correct that we did ask for time until 4 o'clock on Friday to 12 o'clock or 12 o'clock Monday because the documents were given to us, that is myself and Lennox Lawrence. On Thursday, I received an email and a fax and a letter indicating that we had only until Friday, 4 p.m. Nevertheless, we have prepared a response in writing in great detail to the letter written on behalf of Mr. LeBlanc group, or groupings, and we have indicated two positions on behalf of the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and both of these are that the award of the contract for the works on the West Bridge, the dredging of the river, and the northern wall were not in breach of the Procurement Act at all. I can briefly tell you the reasons why. The first ground is that there was in existence prior to December 2014 negotiations and a memorandum of understanding for the redevelopment of those, which, as you know, included the reconstruction of the West Bridge. And that memorandum of understanding and the various discussions for the design and the works continued up to the day the Act came into enforce in January 2015 and thereafter, and the contracts were signed afterwards. Well, it turns out there's a provision of the Act that says that such a contract is unaffected by the award, and the granting and the making of such contracts are exempted from the provisions of the Act, but that they should be administered, meaning managed in accordance with the provisions of the Act. So on that basis, there was no contravention of the Act. After the extraordinary devastation that took place after Tropical Storm Erica, with people losing their lives and properties and villages being destroyed, the government had to prioritize the various emergencies and danger zones that occurred. One of them was, in fact, the Roseau River, because Erica had risen the beds of the river to an extraordinarily high level. It had damaged the walls to the northern side, which posed potentially a greater threat than existed before. And additional damage was being done to the bridge. These are clearly an emergency situation. It doesn't matter whether it takes a month or two to sort it out. It's an emergency situation. The government decided to enter into the contract with the contractor, the same contractor, that it had the memorandum of agreement with in 2014, the same contractor who had undertaken to design and to reconstruct the West Bridge. So the government was confronted within the context of an emergency situation, potentially dangerous situation with flooding, because nobody can predict when flooding would come. And flooding does not only come during the hurricane season. That to engage the company that had already agreed in principle and contractually to rebuild the West Bridge, to do the dredging and the river walls. And as the Prime Minister and others have said before, one of the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding is that local subcontractors are engaged on a competitive and competence basis.
That includes ensuring that we construct that river wall between the two bridges and to mitigate against the prospects of having the river going across this Johnson Avenue and to Elliott Avenue and causing tremendous havoc to our people. And anybody who believes this work is not emergency work is not actually living in Dominica. I think that is something where we have to put politics aside and see certain things insofar as our development is concerned as a national project. And the river wall in Roseau and the West Bridge, the construction of a new bridge, that is of course part of the reconstruction effort post-Erica. And even looking at our rivers now, and that is one thing we have been trying to do. Of course, we now have Mr. Session on board as a consultant advising us, and some of the advice that we got from people with the expertise in the issue of hydrology, dealing with the whole issue as to how do we improve on the hydraulics of our rivers, more so in a major tongue like Roseau, and the issue of needing to map our rivers as is being done right now. We're going to require that kind of skill sets, and the construction of the West Bridge and the construction of the returning wall will require people with that kind of skill sets that speaks to, one, the issue of hydrology, the issue of structural engineering, and of course we may not have within our own local domain. So that's why it's so critical for us to put this thing first and foremost and remove the politics from it.
Something is going on there. We got the impression sometime last week that work has been stopped. You heard Mr. Astafan and Mr. Black was saying it's an emergency and work it's on its way. Hello. Yes.
You know what I want you to do, Matt?
Tell me. Because I'm confused here. Yes.
Play the clip of Rules Well Scared for me, please, Matt. Have a nice afternoon.
Play this. What clip? Oh, you mean the first clip somewhere in Soufriere? I'll try to get that for you, okay? I'm trying to get to Mr. LeBlanc to sort of give us a hint as to what is really going on there. Hello.
Hello, Matt. Good afternoon.
Yes.
Tell Blackmore he must, before he know what he's saying on the radio, he must go and study who have been built bridges in Dominica. And also, George building a wall in Dubla, it's much more difficult than the wall in Roseau. So tell Blackmore he must know what he's saying about Dominican construction workers.
All right. Hello, talk to me.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Matt, I remember you played a clip where the Prime Minister was saying that soon we might see the billboards coming down and everything coming down, the project is going to be stopped.
I thought it was stopped last week.
Why the billboards came down, the containers were flooding. So we're trying to understand what's really happening. You take off the billboards, but you're sending containers on the bus stop, even moving the buses from where they are. So something is actually going on, and you hear what you played there from Mr. Blackmore is something that he said on DBS on Saturday. I actually heard that on DBS on Saturday.
Okay.
Yes, with he and that guy from the Fitzroy Pascal. So Miguel was actually interviewing him, and he actually took the time off to slide that in, and they're talking about politics. They are the ones playing politics with everything that's happening in Dominica, and the people need to see that. And you're talking about what he's talking about, we don't have the skill set here and all that. So he's bringing in all the factors of why they should bring in their foreign workers in that statement that he's making there, And he's talking about we mustn't bring politics and emergency and all that. Yes, it's an emergency situation there, but there are other greater emergencies. People's lives at the mercy of the mountains and the cliffs and everything that is just there waiting to happen. The bridges that are in the rivers above the Bailey bridges. Any flood, you have things that waiting to happen. In Roseau, we don't have that situation, and that's a greater emergency than the others. Tell Mr. Blackmore, have a good day.
Hello, talk to me. Yes.
Hey, Matt.
I'm here.
My friend, good afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you heard Tony Astafan in there, again, seeking to make this point, or just lying that this company already had a contract, or at least, or the contract, the MOU that they signed before included the reconstruction of the bridge. Matt, you're a newsman. Would you not have heard the news back then that these guys were basically given a contract to come up with a concept of what a redeveloped Roseau would look like, and they also were to do one for Portsmouth? You remember that, Matt?
Yes, I remember that.
And then, so now Mr. Astafan is telling us, in his bare-faced lie, we call that, telling us that MOU at the time was a contract that included the reconstruction of the bridge. Matt, this is why I'm saying here, well, I'm sure, again, the people in the construction business, they are obviously monitoring and are dealing with this foolishness. But we have to let people like Astafan know that we are not foolish. And I heard Mr. Blackmore talking more, he sounds more confused than anything else, because on the one hand, he's talking about this wall that we need certain skill set and engineers that we do not have. But Matt, remember, half of that wall is already, the northern wall, half is already done. Remember, it was put up there by George Nanton? The stones are in the middle of the river from building that first half. So that Mr. Nanton could have been given the contract by these same guys to build one half of the wall, and then the other half, then they tell us we do not have the skill set, we do not have the engineers and all this thing. Matt, all this is people are doing is simply trying to make a case for this corrupt practice that they are actually embarking upon, which is to pay off the people in Barbados for their contribution to the last election. They are basically paying a bill or what they understood that they had to do already. And Matt, I will finally end this by asking you a question, Matt, if you know. Our new Minister of Education, Matt, and not education, of Public Works, the lady.
What's that?
The new Minister of Public Works, that's Miss...
Oh, Miss Blanchard, yes.
Matt, do you know which company that lady worked with in Barbados?
I'm still not getting the question there.
Okay, who is our Minister of Communication and Works right now?
Miss Blanchard.
Right, Blanchard. Do you know which company she worked with in Barbados?
No, I'm not aware. I know she worked with the ECCB at some point.
Okay, well, find out whether she ever worked with the same company that has got the contract for that bridge. Find out for me, please, my brother.
I'll find out, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello.
Mr. Pelter, blessings to you, sir. You there with me?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Mr. Pelter, the guy who talked about the amendments being suggested having to do with the Procurement Act. You on GIS somebody. What's his name again, Matt? Can you recall?
Repeat.
What's his name?
The guy at the GIS?
Yeah, no, he made they're talking about making changes, so to speak, to the Procurement Act. He made it a couple times back on the heels of the whole having to do with the stoppage of the project.
Yes, he spoke on GIS, but he don't work at GIS.
No, I don't say he made the statement there. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
If you examine that clip and contrast it with everything that is happening, could it be a loophole according to your brother? Technicality, they wanted more time to go and examine and strategize and maybe look for a loophole and come and say they're not in breach of the whole procurement act.
They did it some time, yes.
So that time, you see what they came up with. I said that, don't worry, when they come back, it's no law, no constitution. So I am saying, my brother, it's an insult, it's a slap in the face. We have been devastated by Erica, Matt, and the amount of tradesmen and professional engineers, architects, contractors that are all over the place, unemployed, Matt. The Chinese are doing all the work. They brought in Venezuelans to the work. Now Barbadians do getting work. Apart from the injustice and the illegalities that may be surrounding that whole West Coast bridge there, not having a proper procedure, having to do with beading and all of that, these guys are bent on just bringing the people to their knees, Matt. I listened to Sam Raphael, something I want to say, it is not connected directly, but just a warning, Matt. Said we cannot allow crime and violence to destabilize our tourist industry. My brother went up people, and I said it already, he who has very little does not value life too much. So when all you want to have what you cake and eat it, deprive young men and women and professionals from surviving in that country. Or you want to tell people, we cannot let crime and violence. Prepare for the crime and violence, because that is criminal, Matt. Blessings, King.
I'm listening, but something is not right. I can't put my finger on the pulse just yet. But all of a sudden, Mr. Astafan coming to this issue of emergency, and Mr. Blackmore speaking out. They were hearing about the possibility of work starting on that bridge soon. Although last week they wanted more time. Hello, talk to me.
Hi, Mark. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon.
And our listeners worldwide, Russia, Afghanistan, Vanuatu, everywhere, they are listening because no matter what, because 295 is the education information station, the station that evaluates corruption and all. Mark, another insult, our people are not, other people are more qualified than our people. That's another insult, Mark. But Mark, it's all about the trick, Mark, the abuse, the disrespect, and the taking advantage of the less fortunate, Mark. No jobs for them, but bribes. Someone said yesterday, Mark, that how they're not creating jobs, Mark. Yes, they are creating jobs, Mark, for the elite, the intelligent and the educated, muzzling them and their families, Mark. Every day we hear of a new ambassador, a new consultant, a new advisor, a new supervisor. Soon, Matt, we will hear or we will see a consultant for the Association for Music Professionals. Don't be surprised, Matt. There a new consultant will be coming out for this association for the music professionals, Matt. Shut your mouth jobs. That's what they are creating. And Matt, there are over 18 ministers and the staff. What are they doing? 18 ministries, Matt. But that is how I see it, Matt. We have too many ministers already, and more they are creating new posts, Matt. That's a trick, Matt, about all those consultants. They're just making jobs for them, creating jobs for them, Matt, to shut them up. And for them to sit there, Matt, they cannot even well explain and tell us what is going on. They're just there marmoting because, Matt, it's jobs that they're just creating for them. And while the others sit there, Matt, and the less fortunate cannot find things for jobs for them to do. But I say to the people of Scott's Head, Soufriere, Gallion, and Point Michel, this is the beginning of a new revolution. We had a revolution in 1979, but this is a beginning. the beginning of a new revolution that's going to take place in our country on June 7th, Matt. And we are depending on them to cure you if you can go.
Caller, thank you very much. We'll watch that one very closely. Hello. 4493095. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon, Matt. How you doing, my brother?
How you doing? Something is not right. I'm trying to put my finger on the pause there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we have gotten accustomed to looking at things in Dominica from that one-dimension perspective. Everything is instinctive, almost like scary. You know, that's the quality we have arrived at. But I think there's a bigger picture at play in this whole thing that's happening. I think the people of Roseau need to really ask themselves a question, because we really don't need a bridge in Roseau, you know? We really don't need a bridge in Roseau. There's no emergency for a bridge in Roseau. The only emergency that is at play here is an emergency of washing money. That's the only emergency that is at play. And I really wish the people of Roseau and the representative and folks will really, you know, decide that, you know, enough is enough. We talk about the people of Soufriere and Scottsdale and their right to take a stand on child abuse. But I think the people of Roseau and Goodwill and Environment need to take a stand on conscience. On conscience, you know, we don't need that bridge in Roseau. That bridge in Roseau is not for Dominica. That bridge in Roseau is for political mileage. Our brothers and sisters in the countryside are without bridges. They're without proper transportation means. We should advocate for a change, you know. So I think just as we ask the people of Point Michel to set a standard, I think time has come for the people of Roseau and Harlem and Goodwill to take a stand. It is right to take a stand against this bridge. We don't need this bridge in Dominica right now.
Caller, thank you so much. 129. Are you there, caller? We move on. Hello?
Matt,
Yes.
good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners. That corruption bridge should stop. And Mr. Skerritt is playing on the minds of Dominicans. A by-election in Soufriere Scottsdale constituency, they're trying to get votes because they haven't got a clean report card. They have not done anything to uplift the lives of the people of the Soufriere constituency. So they come in with that bridge and they come in with handouts and so. I mean, after 19 years, but look at what Erica did to our country. We have tradesmen who are bawling for work. Dominicans are so stupid that we cannot work, Matt. Look at what public works have done in the past, Matt. Look at the amount of bridge, Matt, that fall after Erica, Matt. And up to now, not one of them is temporary bridge, Matt, that we still have. And Mr. Skerritt coming with a corruption bridge in the capital city of Roseau. And we are going to sit down and allow that. We should stand up, Matt. We should stand up and let the world see we are Dominicans and not Dominicans. What is happening? The hospital, there is no paracetamol, Matt. Is Tony Astafan a servant of the people? Is Tony Astafan an elected member of parliament, Matt? For Tony Astafan to try to swing things left, right, and center? Or do you think Dominicans are stupid? We are not stupid, you know. We are not stupid. We are seeing what is happening. While we cannot put food on our table, ministers of government buying expensive vehicles. While we cannot send our children to school, ministers of government are building expensive homes. While we cannot make ends meet, ministers of government are building homes for girlfriends, Matt. What is happening in this country? That must come to a halt. This is a democratic country, and we must stand up. If we don't stand up, our children will hold us responsible tomorrow. Let us give Mr. Skerritt a dose of his own medicine, because this is a democratic country. We did it in 1979. What is wrong with us? Where are the churches? Where are the institutions? Where are the organizations? Where are the pastors? Where are the priests, Matt? It tears my heart, because the future of our country will never have a future under this administration. Our children will never have a future because they do not want you to be independent. It's come to me, come to me, come to me. That is what we have. But Satan come to steal, kill, and destroy. So let Dominicans take their chance and they will see what will happen to them and our country. God bless.
My intelligence tells me that known operatives of the United Workers' Party are busy trying to instigate a stoppage of the new Westbridge project. This is purely to score cheap political points. I am told they're planning street protests. I am told they're seeking injunctions to stop the project. I am told they plan to march. This is what I was referring to when I said to you earlier that in this by-election, we have to send a clear message to the opposition. We have to tell them that we do not approve of their tactics, that we will not tolerate their attempts to bring disorder and chaos to this country. They are seeking to have the operatives in the various organizations initiate all of this with the sole purpose of frustrating and retarding the progress of Dominica. So expect any day now to hear that the West Beach project is interrupted. Expect to hear any day now that trucks are blocking the road. Expect to hear any time now that the various applications have been made to the High Court to stop this project. For this is what the ULP does best: incite civil disobedience and interfere with progress.
You're correct that we did ask for time until 4 o'clock on Friday to 12 o'clock or 12 o'clock Monday because the documents were given to us, that is myself and Lennox Lawrence, on Thursday. I received an email and a fax and a letter indicating that we had only until Friday, 4 p.m. Nevertheless, we have prepared a response in writing in great detail to the letter written on behalf of Mr. LeBlanc's group, or groupings, and we have indicated two positions on behalf of the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and both of these are that the award of the contract for the works on the West Bridge, the dredging of the river, and the northern wall were not in breach of the Procurement Act at all. I can briefly tell you the reasons why. The first ground is that there was in existence prior to December 2014 negotiations and a memorandum of understanding for the redevelopment of those, which, as you know, included the reconstruction of the West Bridge. And that memorandum of understanding and the various discussions for the design and the works continued up to the date the Act came into force in January 2015 and thereafter, and the contracts were signed afterwards. Well, it turns out there's a provision of the Act that says that such a contract is unaffected by the award, and the granting and the making of such contracts are exempted from the provisions of the Act, but that they should be administered, meaning managed in accordance with the provisions of the Act. So on that basis, there was no contravention of the Act. After the extraordinary devastation that took place after Tropical Storm Erica, with people losing their lives and properties and villages being destroyed, the government had to prioritize the various emergencies and danger zones that occurred. One of them was, in fact, the Rosa River, because Erica had risen the beds of the river to an extraordinarily high level. It had damaged the walls to the northern side, which posed potentially a greater threat than existed before. And additional damage was being done to the bridge. These are clearly an emergency situation. It doesn't matter whether it takes a month or two to sort it out. It's an emergency situation. The government decided to enter into the contract with the contractor, the same contractor that it had the memorandum of agreement with in 2014, the same contractor who had undertaken to design and to reconstruct the West Bridge. So the government was confronted within the context of an emergency situation, potentially dangerous situation with flooding, because nobody can predict when flooding will come. And flooding does not only come during the hurricane season. That to engage the company that had already agreed in principle and contractually to rebuild the West Bridge, to do the dredging and the river walls. And as the Prime Minister and others have said before, one of the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding is that local subcontractors are engaged on a competitive and competence basis.
That includes ensuring that we construct that river wall between the two bridges, and to mitigate against the prospects of having the river going across this Johnson Avenue and to Elliott Avenue and causing tremendous havoc to our people. And anybody who believes this work is not emergency work is not actually living in Dominica.
I'm going to bring in Mr. Of course, he's been following that story very closely as well. The opposition leader, Mr. Lennox Linton. Mr. Linton, what do you make of all the differing views or comments on this West Bridge, whether it's going forward. What's your take on what you're hearing?
These matter the wild meanderings of corrupt, heartless politicians who in 2016 are claiming a legal right to award without tender a $18.2 million contract for public works in Dominica that to an outside firm from outside of Dominica that local contractors are able to deliver, but who the government refused to give a chance to tender or to bid. So all the talk that you're hearing now, Matt, about memorandum of understanding and so on, a memorandum of understanding is not a contract. And nowhere in the civilized world do we see this business of someone getting a deal to do the master plan for a project, the design work, coming back and getting without tender the contract to do the actual contractual work. It is a conflict of interest. It is corruption 101. It is only acceptable in the civilized world to the Dominica Labour Party. And that is why this by-election in Soufrière, Scott said, Gallia, Point Michel is so important. The people of that constituency get a chance to say to the government, what you're doing is not acceptable. You cannot be denying Dominicans the right to work. You cannot shut down public works. You cannot have public works employees unpaid for 5 fortnights. But you can find millions of dollars from the citizenship resources of Dominica to award illegally a contract to a Barbadian firm to do work in Dominica that local contractors can do but are not allowed to bid. And then you talk about emergency. What emergency? Tropical Storm Erica was on the 27th of August. The bridge has been functioning since. Is the bridge shut down, Matt?
No.
Oh, it's not shut down. Heard there's any structural report indicating defects that put users of the bridge at risk or anything of the sort?
I'm not aware that it's putting anybody at risk as we speak.
So the emergency is what? The emergency compared to, let's say, the area in Makushri there. The emergency is what? You just have a bridge that was washed away in the Grand Bay area. You have the bridge at Picard. You have all those bridges on the West Coast that are in a state of in-betweenity. But somehow it is the bridge in Roseau that Mrs. Kerry wants to give a contract to his Bajan friends who participated in his election campaign in 2014. That becomes the priority. That becomes the emergency. That becomes the reason why you can void the provisions of the Public Procurement and Contract Administrations Act. It is corruption 101, Matt. And we in Dominica should not continue to stand for it. I gather right now that the Joint Consultative Committee on the Construction Sector has been ignored with their concerns. They have been brushed aside to say, well, you know, everything that the government is doing is legal. And there's some people in Dominica, unfortunately, have decided they're going to defend corruption in the Skerritt administration, come hell or high water, the country be damned. So whether the country gallops to hell in a handbasket under Skerritt corruption, there are people who do not care. They will ceaselessly and relentlessly defend that corruption, which we're seeing in front of our eyes right now. The Public Works Department of government has been dismantled. First of all, hived off into a statutory corporation under the watch of the minister, while ministers of government sat down in cabinet, planning every week and giving contracts to themselves for their backhoes, for their heavy equipment, for their trucks, for the Venezuelan equipment that is down here that nobody owns, that nobody spends any money for. But privileged people within the government circles are able to bill privately for the use of those pieces of equipment. What is going on in Dominica? And we sit back and we watch, and we sit back and we watch, and you ask for protest action, and the people are afraid and they're scared, and we keep looking for what is it going to take to outrage Dominicans to the point where they say, listen, we have had enough of this garbage. You are not going to be allowed to continue to abuse our tax money and our citizenship resources to continue to entrench yourself in power, to continue to make people poor so that they can be dependent on you and effectively have no life. How in 2016 is it acceptable for us to be watching a bunch of corrupt politicians in government enslaving, making people poor, and then turning around and enslaving those poor people to their will, using plywood, using galvanized, using things that poor people need but cannot get because this government has refused to do anything sustainable about a means of livelihood for them? Where are we going in this country, Matt? Where are we going? What is really going on? And how much longer are the good people of this country going to stand aside and watch while Roosevelt's carriage drives their country to hell in a handbasket? We heard the foolishness recently. I heard somebody drew my attention to some comments from the Venezuelan ambassador to statements that I made about the situation down there and the necessity for Dominica to step forward with a humanitarian contribution. And the ambassador seemed to have been offended by that. But you see, this country is in grave danger. We are self-destructing in front of our very eyes, but we keep allowing ourselves to be fooled. That is why I'm hopeful that we will see a different kind of signal coming from a constituency that has been given the opportunity now to say something, to give a report, to give its report card on what is happening in government, to say whether or not it approves of the way in which governance is running in Dominica, or whether or not it approves of the way in which the government has been able to take care of the vital interests of the people of Soufriere, Scott's Head, Gallio, and Point Michel. Have they been able to find jobs? The tourist development work that was going on in the constituency, in Soufriere, for example, where that wonderful work emerged under the United Workers' Party to build up the Sulphur Springs area for its spa potential and its wellness capabilities and so on. All of that has come to naught under the watch of this Labour Party. You look at the marine area that was the marine reserve that development work started there. You look at the lockers for the fishermen in Scott's Head. You look at the $1 million fund that was started to ensure that fishermen were not going out to sea, coming back, unable to sell their fish, and the fish stayed on their hand. Whatever they could not sell would be bought and would be processed for export and so on. We had it going in terms of putting the systems in place to take care of the livelihood of people so that they could have sustainable jobs, so that they could build their lives. You look at the World Creole Music Festival, you look at the purchase of the land in Union Estate, village expansion in Point Michel, the Point Michel seawall and road expansion. 4.5 short years, and work on the critical elements that are responsible for helping people to build their lives going on. 16 years have gone by, and you're seeing no such work. You're seeing a government wholly and solely reliant on the sale of passports and using those passport revenues to mask the reality that our economy is in shambles, that it is really going nowhere fast. Let me give you a brief scenario, Matt.
Yeah, quickly, because I would want the St. Lucia to get a report from there, yeah.
All right, well, this is something we can talk about subsequently. But I wanted to place those points on the record in perspective. When we look at this bridge business in Roseau, we're not just looking at the government and then some hang with a group of contractors in Dominica that have concerns. This is a national interest matter. This is a matter that requires the attention of all of us because it is speaking to the governance that is sending us to hell in a handbasket while we stand aside and look.
Thank you. Elections in St. Lucia, days away. As I indicated to you a few minutes ago, elections in St. Lucia days away. Monday, June 6th. It has been suggested that it's too close to call. I'm talking to colleague and journalist Jesse Leonce. Jesse, good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Mr. Peltier. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Well, you still sound like you have a lot of energy, even days away. You know, around this time, reporters are very busy. Give us a feel of what is on the ground there.
Oh boy, St. Lucia is all over the place. I mean, even late into the night, all during the course of the day, we're into press conferences. In the night, you have these supporters lining up the electric poles with their flags, you know. So St. Lucia is quite a buzz with all of the election hype, the election fever right now.
But we're hearing from the pollsters that it may be too close to call. What's your take?
Definitely too close to call. We can't really say for now because initially, a couple months ago, individuals would have safely said that perhaps the St. Lucia Labour Party might have retained the seat of governance. However, we have seen the United Workers' Party over the last few months really emerge as a force to be reckoned with. Just a day after the Prime Minister had announced the election, so you found a lot of people being caught with their pants down. You have these fringe political parties like the LPM, the Lucian People's Movement, and the Greens Party. They weren't as prepared. Nobody was expecting it to be called so early, so a lot of people decided not to run, etc. But the United Workers' Party, you know, up till the last minute, they were missing two candidates, and they were able to fill these two in time for the general elections and in time for campaigning. Since then, the two major political parties, the St. Lucia Labour Party and the United Workers' Party, they have been putting out all of the promises and the pledges, the mild bribery, if you want to call it that, telling the people what they can expect if they are either re-elected or if they are elected into power. A lot of topics have been coming to the fore, such as the value-added tax. You have the United Workers' Party opposition leader saying that he will repeal value-added tax if he is elected into power. And of course, the removal of a tax is always appealing to the public. You also have the St. Lucia Labour Party continuing on with their manifesto from 2011's election, the Blueprint for Growth. They're saying that they will continue a lot of the social transformation initiatives, and they will move ahead with initiatives like a new judicial complex for the country, because right now our judicial infrastructure located in the city, it's very strained. The buildings are very old, so they're promising a new judicial complex. They are promising a new and improved national cultural center. They are promising a museum for St. Lucia, because currently we do not have a museum. We're really relying on our libraries and our national archives for the preservation of our history, our heritage. So all of these things, they're tapping into the different things that are important to St. Lucia and to St. Lucians. Money in your pocket. You have on the ground things being extended, accusations being extended to the fact that political parties are giving out T-shirts, red and yellow T-shirts with $100 bills in them. That has actually happened. Yeah. So it's a mild form of bribery, you know, right there. Somebody actually posted their T-shirt and the $100 bill that they got in the T-shirt, you know, just so they could join the motorcades and they could join in the party and give it the impression to the undecided electorate that, hey, the St. Lucia Labour Party has a bigger crowd, or the United Workers' Party has a bigger crowd, as they move to and fro around and about St. Lucia for their different public meetings. It has been a very tense election season. I mean, everybody is so they don't want to talk. You have government, you have people who are working in government, you know, you can't get them to comply or give you interviews with regard to certain topics, like the Earlier on, we have the St. Lucia Labour Party, that is the ruling party in St. Lucia, not really seeing the need for an observation mission in St. Lucia. I mean, they indicated that St. Lucia is a sovereign nation and there's no need for that. But there has been some uproar, and I think they have loosened their tongue with regard to that. At this point, they said that three organizations have indicated interest in being in observing this year's general elections, and so we're looking forward to there being an observation mission. And particularly, as you mentioned, it is going to be a very, very close election this year. We're seeing.
So you get the impression, Jesse, that a lot of money is being spent on both sides for that election, of this election coming up.
Well, definitely, there is a lot of money that is being spent. I mean, for a launching, I'm not talking about the regular rallies that they have every weekend and every 2 days at this point, but for just a political meeting now costs about $40,000 to $60,000 when you consider $40,000 to $60,000 EC dollars when you consider the tent, the stage, the lighting, the sound, the vendors, all of these things, and even politicians giving actual funds to the people who show up so they could have their chicken and their rum for the night, so that they could have a good time. There's so much money being spent, and we're seeing an evolution of marketing of the political parties. This year we have really structured and organized marketing plans. It's very evident of the two major political parties. You can't watch a YouTube video without seeing an advertisement about, the opposition doing a bad job, the government doing a bad job, in the last 5 years. So even the children who want to watch cartoons, they're bombarded on YouTube with that kind of thing. The videos you see before a YouTube video plays?
Yes.
An ad, yes. So even to that extent, you have advertisements. People are being bombarded with advertisements on the local stations. We have about 5 local television stations. We have a number of radio stations. Our Facebook is bombarded. Even reports, with reports of journalists being threatened while on the road. People are going all out. They're going all out with their marketing, and aggressively so. In the middle of the night, you have big banners being erected. They're even nailing flags on the electric poles, as I said earlier. And Lucelect, the St. Lucia Electricity Service, has indicated that persons should not be doing this. You do not know what live wire may be close by, but they're trying to trump the other. The St. Lucia Labour Party puts a flag up, the United Workers' Party puts another flag higher. So all of these are really stemming from the funds, bigger flags, bigger signs, bigger posters.
Are there any questions as to where they're getting the monies from?
Okay, that has been a subject of debate for the past few weeks. Both of the major political parties, they have shied away from talking about it. However, we do believe that the private sector has been funding the election campaigns of the political parties. I do not have any proof to put that forward, but that is what we are hearing on the ground. We're hearing that foreign investment is also at play there, but it is not something that they are obligated to divulge to the public, and they don't think it important or advantageous to them to put out at this point. So we don't know really.
So really, as we wrap it up here, sorry there, Jesse. As we wrap it up, it's an election, too close to call at this time.
Definitely too close to call. I mean, there are so many. We thought it was definite SLP because we didn't know that the UWP might have been prepared for the date, but they seem to be coming around and they seem to be putting up a good fight. Some people have bowed out of the race. Some people are not going up for elections, and we're seeing new faces, credible faces. We have individuals like bankers who are coming and being part of the election process. So right now it's too close to call. Just when we thought it was going to be a straight SLP, the UWP is putting up a good fight, and the polls, the preliminary polls are showing something totally different to initially anticipated.
All right, we'll be talking to you again on Friday as we watch this one very closely. Thank you very much, Jesse. And
thank you.
All right, keep tracking it.
I will. Bye-bye.
We'll stay in touch. Thank you. Hector Sparks, Johnny, monitoring elections in St. Lucia too?
Yes, and in the Suffolk constituency, Matt.
Why Suffolk constituency? You mean locally?
Locally, yes, Matt. Because you have the one in St. Lucia. We are monitoring it, Matt. We have been monitoring this one as well. As you said, that Suklo, I was reading the article last night. And that the United Workers' Party is giving Kenny Anthony, Alan Chastney of the United Workers' Party is giving Kenny Anthony of the St. Lucia Labour Party a good run, and that's democracy at work. Matt, we saw she made mention about the the Labour Party T-shirt wrap with
$100.
Yes,
you just showed me a picture. Interesting.
Yeah, I saw that. And so interesting times, Matt. They're using the same things around the Caribbean, and it's sad how they try to buy people, and we've seen that happening in Dominica. Over $2 million spent. But Matt, quickly, some Honorable Peter Carbon was trying to reach you, and he wanted you to know that United Workers' Party built 4 bridges with public works: the Carlis Bridge in Castlebrus, the Belfast Bridge, the Bath Estate Bridge, and the one in Dalis across there in the Fontoma area. Fontoma, they call it, yes. Point Millard area, so United Workers Party, and also in Point Michel when they did the wall in Point Michel and everything. So we use local engineers, local contractors to do this important work in Dominica. Why can't we use those we have today? And that's what I want to do. And on behalf of Peter Carbon, is trying to reach you. I was just downstairs and when he called me, so I said let me run upstairs and just share that.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We'll keep monitoring, and of course monitor our local by-election. We'll talk a little more about that tomorrow. Thank you.